It all began with a relentless onslaught of TikTok notifications. Every buzz felt like a ticking time bomb, and soon I found myself immersed in the world of open marriages, thanks to my wife's newfound obsession. One evening, she burst into our living room with excitement radiating from her eyes. "Have you ever considered an open marriage?" she asked, a wide grin on her face. I looked up from my laptop, eyebrows raised in surprise. "Open marriage? Where did that come from?" She plopped down beside me, her fingers dancing across her phone screen. "I've been reading and listening to these podcasts. We're young, and we should explore before we settle down with kids and all that, you know." I sighed, sensing the persistence in her tone. "Actual promise. Exploring doesn't always mean involving other people in our marriage, but it could be exciting. Think about it. Freedom, variety, new experiences," she said, her enthusiasm palpable. As she bombarded me with articles and podcasts, I found myself slowly succumbing to the idea. Maybe it was the allure of something different or the desire to keep our relationship from becoming mundane. Eventually, we sat down to establish rules, setting the boundaries that would supposedly protect us from the pitfalls of an open marriage. No unprotected activities, I insisted, trying to establish some semblance of safety. She nodded, her eyes locked on mine. "Agreed. And nothing in our house. We'll keep it separate." Our conversation continued, laying down the foundation for the unconventional path we were about to embark upon. Little did I know that this seemingly innocent proposal would open the door to a roller coaster of emotions and challenges that neither of us was fully prepared for. Our journey into the realm of open marriage commenced with a surprising smoothness. Friday nights became the designated time for my wife's escapades, and I threw myself into my work, naively assuming this would be a thrilling adventure for both of us. We followed the rules meticulously, ensuring no unprotected activities, no encounters in our home, and absolutely no details shared about other partners. In the early months, it felt like we were treading on uncharted but exciting territory. "How was your date?" I'd ask, feigning casual interest as she returned home. She'd smile, eager to share. "So, it was just a date. Nothing serious. We went for dinner, had a few laughs. That's it." The conversations were superficial and boundaries seemed to hold. It was like maintaining a delicate dance, where the rules acted as the choreography, dictating our movements. As the first year unfolded, my wife continued her Friday night rituals. She adhered to the boundaries, sharing enough to keep me informed, but not too much to break the agreed-upon rules. Once I went to that new art exhibit with him. She'd say, her eyes reflecting a glimmer of excitement. I'd nod, feigning nonchalance. "Sounds interesting." But beneath the surface, a sense of unease started to fester. I immersed myself in work and personal pursuits, trying to drown out the growing discomfort. The novelty was wearing off, and the weight of our unconventional arrangement began to bear down on me. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, the facade started to crack. "Is this really working for us?" I couldn't help but ask, the words escaping before I could think. She looked up, a hint of concern in her eyes. "What do you mean?" "I mean, is this making us happy or just ticking boxes on some checklist?" The first cracks in our carefully constructed facade appeared, hinting at the storm that loomed on the horizon. The initial excitement of our open marriage began to wane, giving way to a growing sense of unease. It wasn't long before the tempest hit and our carefully crafted boundaries were shattered. One fateful Friday night, my wife returned home later than usual. The air in our living room felt tense as she entered, her demeanor strangely subdued. "Long night?" I asked, attempting to keep my tone casual. She looked at me with a forced smile. "Yeah, just lost track of time. Nothing to worry about." But the marks on her chest and thighs told a different story, a silent betrayal that broke through the thin veneer of our agreement. I couldn't ignore the signs any longer. Just lost track of time or lost track of our rules? I questioned, my voice tinged with a mix of hurt and anger. She avoided my gaze, a guilty expression playing on her features. "It was just this one time." "It doesn't mean anything. One time is all it takes to break the trust we built," I retorted, struggling to contain my emotions. The realization of a boundary breach hung heavy in the air, a tangible sign that the foundation of our open marriage was cracking. The superficial conversations about our dates became a painful reminder of the fragility of our arrangement. Days turned into weeks, and the incident lingered between us, an unspoken tension that cast a shadow over our interactions. As the weeks passed, she continued her Friday night escapades, but the spark that once fueled our unconventional agreement had dimmed. One evening, I confronted her about the breach, the weight of my words heavy in the room. Is this what we agreed upon? Trust is the bedrock of this experiment, and you've shattered it. Her attempt at reassurance fell flat, and the sense of betrayal hung in the air, poisoning what was left of our once thriving connection. The broken boundary was a harbinger of the challenges that lay ahead, a foreshadowing of the unraveling threads that would soon define the course of our relationship. The breach of our carefully established boundaries cast a long shadow over our relationship, and the fallout left me feeling like a forgotten relic on a dusty shelf. As my wife continued her Friday night escapades, I found myself retreating further into the recesses of my own life, seeking solace in work and physical activities. You've been distant lately, she remarked one evening, a hint of concern in her voice. I looked up from the book I was pretending to read, my frustration seeping through. Distant. Maybe it's because I feel like I've been put on a shelf collecting dust while you're out having your fun. She sighed, a fleeting look of guilt crossing her face. It's not like that. You know I care about you, but caring seemed like a distant memory. As the weeks went by, the pattern became painfully clear. Friday nights were her adventure, and the rest of the week was her attempt to pull me back into the charade. I grew tired of being the afterthought, the consolation prize in a relationship that was slipping through my fingers. In an effort to regain some control, I immersed myself in physical activities. I'd taken up running. I mentioned one evening, the words carrying a weight of significance. Her response was dismissive. Running? Why? I need something to do while you're out doing your thing. I retorted, my frustration surfacing. The once shared experiences turned into solitary pursuits, and my body began to reflect the emotional turmoil within. The weight loss was noticeable, a physical manifestation of the emotional distance that had crept between us. I'm just trying to find myself again, I confessed during one of our strained conversations. She looked at me, a mix of concern and frustration in her eyes. You're overreacting. It's just a phase. But to me, it felt like more than just a phase. It felt like a desperate attempt to reclaim a sense of self that was slipping away with every passing day. As I became more physically active, the chasm between us widened and the resentment grew, setting the stage for a relationship that was becoming increasingly untenable. As the cracks in our open marriage deepened, a significant date approached, our 4th wedding anniversary. It was meant to be a celebration of our commitment, a testament to the love we once shared. But as the day dawned, it became painfully clear that the significance of our union had been overshadowed. Vic took the day off work, I announced, trying to inject a sense of enthusiasm into the air. My wife, absorbed in her own thoughts, looked up with a blank expression. Steve every 6 points. Oh, is it today? I completely forgot. The weight of her words hung in the air, a heavy silence replacing the joyous anticipation I had hoped for. I had taken the day off, prepared a special dinner, and even cleaned the house, all for a celebration that she had neglected to remember. You forgot our anniversary? I asked, my disappointment turning into a tinge of bitterness. She shrugged, a nonchalant response that further fueled the growing resentment within me. Hurts, I've been busy. It slipped my mind. The disregard for a day that held such significance for both of us was a stark reminder of how far we had strayed from the once intimate connection. I felt like a stranger in my own marriage, trying to salvage remnants of a love that was slipping away. As the evening unfolded, the tension reached its peak. I made dinner, I stated my attempt at salvaging the day. She glanced at the table, seemingly unimpressed. Sorry, I'm heading out to a bar to see a local band. Don't wait up. The words hung in the air, a stark contrast to the effort I put into making the day special. The celebration turned into a solitary affair, and the realization hit me. Our anniversary had become just another day in the calendar, devoid of the love and commitment that it once symbolized. I looked alone with a table set for 2. I faced a moment of clarity, the broken boundaries, the distant connection, and now a forgotten anniversary. It was time to confront the inevitable. The decision to end our open marriage became a resolution, and the journey towards divorce took a definitive step forward. The forgotten anniversary became a turning point, a stark realization that our open marriage had become a facade, masking the crumbling foundation of our relationship, the emotional toll of broken boundaries, distant connections, and now a neglected celebration reached its peak. It was time to confront the reality that lingered in the shadows. I think we need to talk, I said, my voice carrying a weight that echoed the growing distance between us. She looked up from her phone, a sense of detachment in her gaze. What's there to talk about? The guys were marriage, for starters. I replied, my frustration finding a voice. She sighed, an impatient gesture that fueled my determination. This open marriage experiment is tearing us apart. I can't do this anymore. Her reaction was a mix of surprise and dismissal. It's not just a phase. We'll get through it. I shook my head, the resolve building within me. This isn't a phase. It's a fundamental breakdown of what we had. I want a divorce. The words hung in the air, a heavy silence replacing the once shared dreams and promises. The reality of our failed experiment became glaringly apparent, and the decision to divorce was both a relief and a heavy burden. She scoffed as if dismissing the gravity of the situation. Divorce? You're overreacting. We can fix this. But the weight of broken boundaries, forgotten anniversaries, and a growing emotional chasm couldn't be dismissed with a casual wave of the hand. The decision to end our marriage was a painful acknowledgement that the love we once shared had disintegrated into a mere memory. As the divorce proceedings unfolded, she made desperate attempts to change my mind. We can go back to how it was. Just give me another chance, she pleaded. I stood firm, my heart heavy with the weight of goodbye. The more chances. This is the end. The court-ordered marriage counseling sessions felt like a futile attempt to salvage something irreparably broken. The once shared dreams became fragments of a past that seemed increasingly distant. The decision to divorce was both a liberation and a plunge into the unknown, marking the end of a chapter that had become more painful than the prospect of a new beginning. With the decision to divorce made, the journey through the legal labyrinth began. The once shared dreams turned into legal documents, and the courtroom became the stage for the final act of our failed marriage. You're making a mistake, she insisted during one of our heated discussions. I looked at her, exhaustion evident in my eyes. The mistake was believing this open marriage could save us. Divorce is the only way out. As the divorce proceedings advanced, the shadows of legal turmoil loomed over us. The court-ordered marriage counseling sessions became a stark reminder of what had unraveled. A judge, an impartial spectator in the theater of our broken relationship, imposed 6 weeks of mandatory counseling. Maybe this will give us a chance to salvage something, she suggested, her tone carrying a desperation that mirrored my own internal struggle. I shook my head, the weight of resentment and disappointment pressing on my shoulders. This isn't about salvaging anything. It's about moving on. The counseling sessions were a mix of tense dialogues and forced attempts at communication. The court-mandated process felt like a cruel joke, prolonging the inevitable. Yet amidst the legal turmoil, a glimmer of clarity emerged. The judge expedited the proceedings, pushing us closer to the finish line. As legal documents were signed and the divorce neared its finality, I found myself in the role of a reluctant spectator. We're just prolonging the inevitable, I admitted during one of our final counseling sessions. She looked at me, her eyes reflecting a mix of regret and resignation. Maybe it's for the best. We both need a fresh start. It was a symbolic closure to a chapter that had once held promises of forever. As the court finalized our divorce, the weight of legal obligations lifted, leaving behind a sense of liberation tinged with a bittersweet taste of what once was. The reality of divorce brought a mix of emotions, relief, grief, and the daunting prospect of moving forward. With legalities behind us, the process of untangling our lives began, each action a step towards reclaiming a sense of self that had been lost in the unraveling of our marriage. I'd helped pack some of your stuff, I mentioned, the air heavy with the residue of a shared past. She nodded, avoiding eye contact. Thanks. I appreciate it. The once shared spaces were now filled with echoes of memories, both beautiful and painful. As I assisted in the packing, the realization that our lives were irrevocably changing settled in. I need to move on, I admitted, my gaze meeting hers. She looked down, the weight of our failed marriage evident in her silence. I wish things could have been different. Moving forward meant more than just physical separation. It was a mental and emotional departure from a chapter that had reached its conclusion. The echoes of her attempts to salvage what was left lingered in the air. I don't want to see you again. I confessed the honesty and necessary boundary for my own healing. Her eyes welled with tears, and for a moment, the vulnerability bridged the gap between us. I'm sorry for everything, but apologies couldn't mend the shattered pieces of our relationship. As she prepared to leave, the process of moving forward became a shared but solitary endeavor. Days turned into weeks, and the physical distance allowed for a sense of clarity. I changed my phone numbers and deleted social media. I can't keep living in the past, I explained during our final interaction. She nodded, understanding the necessity of boundaries settling in. Maybe it's for the best. The moving trucks arrived, and with them, a tangible sense of closure. This is it, I said, a mix of resignation and acceptance in my voice. She looked at me, her eyes holding a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. Thank you for helping. I hope you find happiness. As the door closed on the remnants of our shared life, the weight of our history lifted. Moving forward was an individual journey, and as I watched her leave, I embraced the uncertainty of a future untethered from the complexities of a broken marriage. The echoes of the past faded, leaving space for the possibility of new beginnings. Thank you for listening to the story to the end, and if you like it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. So write in the comments what you think about the story.